au débat de ce forum qui est un forum de tradition déjà et un forum de vraie portée régionale. With your permission, if I can switch to English and fire up some of the many questions that me and certainly have for you. This should not be surprising given the leading role that France is has assumed for the NATO battle group in Romania, given the commitment that France has for the security of not only Romania, but the wider Black Sea region, given the remarkable fact that France has already developed a national strategy for the Black Sea, which I don't know of any other parallel in the European Union, and you have appointed an ambassador for a special representative, Ambassador Roux, who is taking an active part in our proceeding today, a special representative for the region. So if I can already, without any further ado, address the issue of the diplomatic process around Ukraine. Obviously, France is a major actor in this process. What are your takes, Mr. Minister, on the prospects for achieving a settled end to this war in Ukraine?
Well, first, thank you, Ambassador, and let me say I'm really pleased to be here, and I wish I could be with you in person, and I want to make sure that I can do this next year. And you're right that the Black Sea is a critical area for the security of Europe, and this is why it's an area of really strategic priority for France. You know that we have a very close bond and friendship with Romania. France is the framework nation for the NATO mission Aigle in Romania, in addition to our presence in the rest of the NATO reassurance missions in Poland and in the Baltic states. And we are very committed as well to the security and the democratic and European path of Moldova. And in this moment of Russian aggression against Ukraine, we can see the strategic aspect both on the military side, the economic side, the question of food security, the role that the Black Sea has been playing. You're asking me about the negotiations on Ukraine. And for us, there's a few key principles that have stayed core to our approach on this from the start. That through Ukraine and through its aggression on Ukraine, it's the security of all Europeans and the European security architecture that Russia is going after. And we have to be very clear about that. Russia is a threat to all of European democracies through its interference, through its sabotage, through its cyber attacks, and through the way it wants to revisit, once again, the borders and the institutions of the European Union. And in this respect, for us, it's clear that nothing about Ukraine can be decided without Ukrainians and without Europeans. And with our friends in the United States, we've had a very convergent approach. We want peace. We want to find an end to this war through diplomacy and negotiations. This is what President Zelensky has kept saying. President Zelensky already weeks ago agreed to a 30-day ceasefire, unconditional, to be able to sit at the negotiation table with the Russians and to find a way towards a negotiation. This is what President Trump wants. This is what we want in Europe. This is what Ukrainians want. The only country that keeps turning its back to serious diplomacy, to the question of a ceasefire, has been Russia. Russia has been escalating its bombings on the ground against civilians, against infrastructure, against the Ukrainian military. It's been keeping maximalist aims about what it wants to achieve in Ukraine, talking about demilitarization, about neutralization, which basically means that Ukraine cannot choose its partners and allies, its democratic and political path, talking about a change in government, which can only be the sovereign decision of the Ukrainian people. De facto, Russia wants to erase Ukraine as an independent nation state, and this is not something we can accept. So we've been very clear that if Russia continues to refuse to negotiate, we will increase the pressure on Russia through sanctions. We just had the adoption, as you know, of the 17th package of sanctions of the European Union. We'll have to go further. There's also a very ambitious package being negotiated right now at the Senate of the United States, and we'll have to continue our military support to Ukraine. Once again, I want to make clear our objective, and this is something we share with the United States, is to be able to first find a ceasefire, then have diplomacy, and then lay the groundwork for a just and lasting peace in Ukraine. A just and lasting peace, meaning that it will have to be connected with security guarantees for Ukraine, making sure that this is not just a ceasefire that's used as a parenthesis, as a break by Russia to rearm and reattack Ukraine. We know the recent history. We've seen what happened with the Minsk agreements, which Russia has violated dozens of times before the full-scale invasion in 2022. So we'll have to continue to support the Ukrainian military to make sure that it's robust and independent, and provide security guarantees to Ukrainians precisely so that we can deter further aggression and that Ukrainians can rebuild their country and turn towards the European Union. Our objective is peace, and this is what we want to achieve moving forward with all of our partners.
Well, I thank you so much for your strategic clarity and for your principled stance. It was a very comprehensive answer. I very much appreciate that. Now, somehow related to that, of course, Romania, the riparian states of the Black Sea, but the whole of Europe, and ultimately there is a global stake as well there in securing the freedom of navigation and the safe Black Sea, so that as many countries that are interested can profit from the recently found and soon to be extracted the gas reserves of the Black Sea, so that there can be that the Black Sea can serve the goal of food security globally. So my question would have to do with how do you see a monitoring mechanism of a maritime ceasefire, a component of the ceasefire over Ukraine in the Black Sea? And with regard to that, what should be the role of the EU, NATO riparian countries, Romania, Turkey, Bulgaria?
Look, if I'm being very frank, I don't want to preempt some of the conversations that will happen about the monitoring of a ceasefire, because the truth is right now there's one country that still refuses to accept the principle of a ceasefire. It's Russia. And so I want to find a way first to get to where we can be for a ceasefire and how we can increase the pressure. There will be discussions, of course, on monitoring, and I think Europeans who are friends in the United States, with countries that have been quite involved and played an important strategic role, like Turkey, of course, in the Black Sea. I think everyone has a common interest in making sure that we can ensure stability. You mentioned, of course, the question of maritime security and food exports, and this is something that's been, at the core of discussions actually for years, and it will have to be critical because this is also about the reconstruction and sovereignty of Ukraine, is having this question of exports. It's important for us and important for Ukrainians as well. But I think we'll leave this conversation to the different militaries and diplomats once we get to a ceasefire.
Thank you very much. That's understandable. Although, of course, this and the protection, the ceasefire over the energy infrastructure have been discussed as precursors to an overall ceasefire, but I'm sure it is very difficult to already anticipate that. Now, I mentioned already the French national strategy for the Black Sea, and with a view to the upcoming EU Black Sea strategy that we all want to be a robust one, adapted to the present security context. What would be the points that France considers important to be taken up in that overall EU strategy? And if I can put it like that, in a nutshell, Minister, why is the Black Sea important for France?
Well, in a nutshell, the Black Sea, as I said, it's a critical interconnector in the region. You mentioned energy security, food security, maritime. We are here at the borders of Europe, and the truth is, when you look at the countries that Russia has been going after. Of course, there's Ukraine. You've seen the interference in Romania. You've seen, of course, the massive interference in the election in Moldova as well. So you can see that this is an area where Russia wants to exploit instability and wants to create an arc of crisis. So for us, it's absolutely critical to ensure the resilience of the region and our partners. And that should be at the core of the priorities of the European Union. And then, I would say you have a multiplicity of factors. First, making sure that we're extremely resilient to informational warfare. We have tools at the European level, like the Digital Services Act, which allows to put more pressure on platforms to moderate their content, to fight against disinformation, to allow for full transparency of algorithm and push back against any manipulation by hostile actors. So this is something on which we need to be able to act and to use those instruments to be able to be as forceful as possible, to ensure a free, open, democratic space that's not being hijacked or manipulated by hostile external actors, making sure that we also help towards the path of energy independence and reform the countries that are working in that direction. I'm thinking especially of Moldova. I'm very involved in working with my different counterparts at the European level on building our support to Moldova. We've seen the efforts that are being made by President Maia Sandu in the way of democratic and European reforms. I think these are very courageous steps. And here, the work that the European Union has been doing, both to accompany with the situation in Transnistria, but also follow the path of reform, I think is quite critical. There will be an election in Moldova in September, where we know once again that there will be attempt at interference and hybrid warfare. And I think here, helping our friends in Chisinau build up the resilience and instruments to make sure that the Moldovan democracy is protected and can play its full independent role, I think will be quite important. So I would really put the emphasis on this, on really the resilience, the energy security, and the information integrity as really key components, in addition to, of course, the reassurance part that we undertake through NATO with our partners.
Thank you so much, Minister. I think most of your points are actually debated more in detail in our proceedings today and tomorrow. So it's good to have the political reference from friends on them. Perhaps last one from me, maybe a little bit more delicate, but it is difficult to avoid discussing about the intense electoral process that Romania had for the highest office in the country. It's been intense, and it's been receiving a far greater international attention that we were accustomed to until now, and that in a very good part because of the destabilizing effects of a series of distortions. There's been a lot of disinformation, manipulation going on, and a lot of it in, I would say, new ways that we've not seen as such at work. So my question would be, what do you feel should be the main lessons for Europe out of this experience? And how could we, ideally at EU level, formulate solutions to shield ourselves from such distortions that currently seem almost impossible to overcome? The challenge is very big. We need solutions. We need solutions that are concerted, ideally, but it's difficult to already fathom what these solutions might be.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think it's a really important issue because you can see how the information space and social media has now become a new area of hybrid warfare and manipulation for hostile powers, especially from Russia. And this has happened in Romania. This has happened in Moldova. You can see cyber attacks now in Poland, and this has happened in France as well. In France, the 2017 election, President Macron's campaign at the time was targeted and attacked by Russia. And I think here we have a series of tools that we constrain. First, as I said, we have a rule of law in Europe. We have instruments that we've developed, the Digital Service Act, which basically said what is illegal in the real world has to be illegal in the virtual world. If you have hate speech, if you have disinformation, if you have interference, and you have manipulation of algorithm, the social media companies have to moderate, have to take steps to be able to push back against this. Otherwise, they'll face fines and sanctions. And we want a democratic space where everyone can express their opinion, but a bot is not a voter. A bot that's being built in a factory in St. Petersburg does not have the right to vote. Every citizen has the right to vote and express himself, but not a bot. If you look at what happened in Romania, TikTok, it's not a government that said this, TikTok was very clear in a report that they had to deactivate hundreds of thousands of fake accounts and bots following the first presidential election. So on this, we have to be extremely vigilant and enforce the instruments that we have. And I think we have to be very clear about what's going on. For a long time, there was a debate about whether you would name and point to the actors that are responsible for such attacks. I think we have to be very clear, as it is happening, transparent with our citizens about the kind of manipulation that we see from foreign actors. And then, in addition to this, because I would say that's quite defensive, there's another part that I think is structural and very important, and it has to do more with how we can spur an ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship in Europe and make sure that in the future areas of tech, AI, quantum, we actually support our European actors. Because the problem where we're here is that we also have so much of the information space that is being shaped by actors that are either American or Chinese. And how do we make sure that for the next turning points in technology, we actually have, because the truth is, we have the scholars, we have the innovators, we have the startups, but they still have trouble expanding and finding the funding to be able to develop in Europe, because we have a single market that's still too fragmented. We have still too many barriers in terms of regulation, and because we don't connect the savings and the money that we have lying dormant in Europe to the investment needs that we have. And sometimes, we have 300 billion euros of European savings that cross the Atlantic every year to fund the US economy. Well, I would say now there's so much uncertainty what's going on in the United States. Let's keep it here, and let's make sure that it can find the projects, the companies, the startups to fund here in Europe. And I think that's the economic component of this. And you can have everything, in the Draghi report, the Letta reports, when it comes to deepening the single market. I think that's actually critical also for the strategic autonomy and the independence of Europe when we think also about these strategic issues. So let's make sure that we have our own tech actors and that we can play our own sovereign role here in this respect. And if you allow me to say a final word, I want to say that France is a strong friend of Romania, that we really value the deep bilateral relationship that we have with Romania. President Macron congratulated and spoke to President Nico Surdan. And as I said, we have French troops in the NATO mission here in Romania. Romania plays a very important leadership role in the Black Sea, and the support for Ukraine is a key actor of the European Union. And, I had the pleasure of visiting Romania recently, and I think it's important that we continue in the path of this strong friendship that, beyond the bilateral relationship with the European Union, has such deep historical and cultural background, as we all know. And so, this is also the reason why I wanted to participate into this.
Thank you so much, Minister. I think it is very useful for all of us here, Romanians, still very much under the impressions of the hard-fought electoral campaign, and what you rightly called this discontinuity between the online and offline world. There were apparently two different plays that were going on in these two worlds, and they didn't seem to really connect. So I can only thank you more generally for this very forceful articulation of France's stance on the major stakes at the Black Sea, in the Black Sea area, to once again testify of our appreciation for the concrete contribution that you are bringing to the security of the region. And as you said, and I think I am expressing the general sentiment in this room, that our exchange, which was very easy, unmediated, and direct, is only showing the deep and I would say inextricable ties of cultural ties, historical ties, but also political ties that unite France and Romania. We will take up some of the main points you made during the debates that are following. By all means, we would have liked to have you here for this edition, but we would be more than happy to have you join the 10th edition next year. That would be a landmark, and my very best wishes for your very important political mission, Mr. Minister. Thanks for joining us. All the best to you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you very much.